Hello, UK Crime Book Club. We are here. It is Tuesday. Is it Tuesday? Tuesday, the 6th of August. And we're going to be talking about the Hardwick Heath killer with Michelle Kidd, the lovely and talented Michelle Kidd. Very excited to have you back to talk with us. So, would you like to introduce yourself and show off some book covers and tell us a bit about Nikki?
Okay, so I'm Michelle.
Oh, you're frozen again, Michelle.
On your screen.
Have I frozen on yours?
No.
Okay. Let's see if it just kicks back in, and if it doesn't, then we'll try and have a look. Yeah, I want you to be able to show off the book covers, and you can't at the moment. Why don't you tell us a bit about the books first, because we can still hear you.
You can still hear me.
And the audience will let me know whether they can actually see you moving on. Oh, you were moving again then.
Moving.
Yeah, get the book covers in quick. Go.
Right, okay. So, I think the one you've just read, Sam, is the Hardwick Heath Killer.
Which
is this one here.
Absolutely brilliant.
But it is book 3 in the series. So the first book is actually Missing Boy. Came out, I should know these dates, probably a year or so ago.
He remembers all of the dates.
So Missing Boy is the first book in my Suffolk-based crime series. It features DI Nikki Hardcastle. So she's a female DI. It's set in my current hometown, which is Bury St Edmunds. It's where I live now. So I decided to write a series set here. I thought that'd be quite good. I can include lots of local interest and places that I know about. So Missing Boy itself, you might gather from the title, is about a missing boy. Surprise, surprise. So it's a boy that disappears from a local fair. And it has sort of memories for Nikki, because when she was young, when she was 10, she took her brother to a fair and he disappeared. 1 minute he was there, she was distracted by the candy floss stall, and the next minute he was gone and he'd never been found. So when she gets this case of a missing boy, it strikes a chord with her, because it's almost a mirror image of her childhood.
And her brother is Dean, obviously, and we learn a bit more about him as we go along.
We do. So we know a little bit about Dean in Missing Boy, obviously. So I don't want to give too much away about the storyline. So she's investigating in Missing Boy. Obviously, she's trying to find this missing boy called Lucas. But she's always thinking about her brother, because it's very similar circumstances. And there's even the suggestion that could it be the same person, because the circumstances are so similar. So then we move on to book 2. So I'm not going to say anything about how the book 1 ends.
No, of course not.
Book 2, we've got the trophy killer. So again, Nikki's got another case to solve in Bury St Edmunds. This particular book, I was told to tone down some of the scenes a little bit, because maybe they were a little bit too graphic. So it is a trophy killer. He does take trophies from his victims, but he's slightly different. So he takes body parts from his victims in order to create his own body map. And then he will return the body parts to the town. So he puts them in strategic locations around the town. So he's a slightly different serial killer, trophy killer. But the story with Nikki and her long lost brother kind of continues through that book as well. So again, I don't want to give too much away.
No, of course not.
But it is obviously something that gets revisited in that book as well. So I would recommend reading from the beginning, because you get the whole timeline.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think you could pick one up and read it, absolutely fine. And if it's not the kind of thing that bothers you, knowing some things as you go through, things that you might not have known as you go back, then fine. But for me, I like them in order, and I really like the Nikki books in order. Yeah.
Yeah, I tried to write them so you can read them. There's a story there. There's a case. It's got a beginning. It's got an end. But there is this backstory that's always there. I try to recap a little bit in the books, but I'm like you. I like to read right from the beginning, so I get the whole backstory there.
Yeah, agreed. And book 3, the Hardwick Heath
And then
Killer,
book
that we're going to
3,
talk about today.
this one only came out in July. I've already forgotten the day.
16th.
16th, thank you. So the Hardwick Heath Killer, again, is set in Bury St Edmunds. Hardwick Heath is actually a heath which is next to the hospital where I work. So we all know Hardwick Heath very well. And there's a body found hanging from one of the trees on Hardwick Heath. And to begin with, it does look like it's a suicide. But very quickly, the intrepid police constable that stumbles across the scene realises that there's more to it than meets the eye. And he's quite right, there is more to it. So again, Nikki now has to investigate a case of who would want to kill someone and make it look like they've killed themselves. So that's the main story of the Hardwick Heath Killer. There is another body, as always, because I like more than one body in my books. And it's whether the two are connected. Is there just one killer on the loose? Is there two? Are they connected in any way? So that's the basic outline of book 3.
So, as you said, we kind of start with a possible suicide, but there's something kind of straight away that the constable who attends thinks something just doesn't sit right.
Doesn't look right, yeah.
Yeah, and there's just something that doesn't feel right. So when Nikki gets there, the scene's been kind of cordoned off, as it were. It's it's making sure nobody else is in there, and all of them have got just something like niggling at them. There's like this thing jangling that they're not quite sure what it is.
Mm-hmm.
When you were kind of writing that bit, did you know straight from the off, before you even started, that you were going to plan something that was going to look a certain way, but actually it wasn't how it appeared?
Yeah, so I had that opening scene in my head right from the beginning, so I knew that was going to be the start of the story. I tend to have the opening scene in my head for most books. I know how it's going to start. I never know how it's going to end, but I know how it's going to start. So I did have that. I had a vision of this, exactly the scene that I write. It was in my head, and I thought, yeah, police constable's going to turn up, and he's going to know pretty soon that something's not quite right about it.
I feel like you have a lot of fun writing these books, even though there's a darkness to them, which reflects real life, sadly. But that I feel like when I'm reading them, it's almost like you're skipping through what you're writing because you're enjoying it so much. Skipping as in like not skipping past it, like you're enjoying it so much that you're skipping along happily as you're writing. Is that how you feel when you're writing? Because that's, even in the darker pages, there's still like a lightness to them.
Yeah, I do. I probably not consciously, but yes, I like writing. I like writing the darker side. I think this Suffolk series, so I've got a London-based series as well, but I think the Suffolk-based series, and people have said to me, it's a slightly darker series. The perpetrators, the killers in this series, are just that little bit more evil to them, and I kind of like to explore that. But I like exploring about why someone does something. So to me, yes, you need to know what what the offence was, how someone was killed, and it's the investigation into that. How did it happen? Who did it? How did they do it? But to me, the crux of the story is, why did the killer do it? So it's the why that I like exploring. And yeah, I think that just comes to me so easily. I just flow through that because I like exploring why people do things. I think it's fascinating. The human brain and the human psychology are just so fascinating.
It is. It's really interesting. And when you're writing your characters, you can see how much you've kind of picked them apart to put them together to make them the character that they are. I feel like you do an awful lot of, and I'm sure most authors do, a lot of work in really thinking about who your character is and what their motivation is, and the why really is so underpinned in who they are. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there has to be a reason for people to act the way they do. And the amount of thought that you put into that, I think, really comes across in your characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a real crux of most of my stories that I just want to know why people do things. You know, you want to find out who did it, how they did it, but I think the interesting thing is why people do the things that they do. And so I like to. Some of my scenes are from the killer's perspective. You know, you see the killer. And you have a little delve into their background as to what's
Mm.
happened to them, because something's happened to them to make them the person they are. I like exploring that. You know, I do like a flashback. So I have lots of flashbacks in my
I do
books because
like a
I like
flashback.
to go back to, you know, where did it all start?
Mm.
Were they born like that, or were they created?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got some hellos already. So
Mm-hmm.
um, Bob's saying hello, Kaz is saying hello, Donna and Deb. Deb Day,
Oh,
hello, Deb. I met Deb in person the first time I met you in person, the first day.
oh,
We were
really?
at Battersea Park for
Battersea
Christmas.
Park. Yeah.
And that was nice being outside. Did like
Yes.
being outside. Deb's the sweetheart. She shouted me, and then I'd never actually seen her. I'd seen probably teeny tiny image and didn't have a name, a face to put to the name.
Yes.
I've never
Yes.
had anyone kind of so emphatic, such a big hug.
Mm-hmm.
I just love that. It's
Yes.
um, it's one of the things that I think is kind of, don't know if you feel the same, but events where you're in person. I mean, this is nerve wracking enough, even when I know you, and we've
Mm-hmm.
chatted a lot. But in person events, they're quite I think they're quite overwhelming.
They are. They
And
are.
how do you feel about that kind of, you walking around meeting people, saying hello? It's a lot to take in at any big event.
Yeah. It is. It is. And I think writers in general, and I think anyone involved in writing, we're quite, I'll say introverted, but we're quite nervous people anyway, and we don't like big crowds, and we don't like to be the centre of attention, and it is quite a nerve-wracking thing, the whole prospect of meeting all these people and having to talk to everybody.
Mm.
It can be quite a daunting thing.
Definitely is a daunting thing. Malcolm's just said hello as well. Hi, Malcolm. So I want to go back to what you were saying about using areas that you're familiar with in your books. Has
Hmm.
that made it maybe not easier to write them, but is there more comfort in using an area that you know when you're writing?
Yeah, it is, so I like writing about places I know, and I like almost putting like local businesses into the books. I think it's good for them, and
Mm.
everyone's been really supportive in the local town. Um, I think you do have to do your research even better, because I know local people are going to read it, and they might say to me, "Well, that's not quite true because that doesn't appear on that street," and I do reserve a bit of
Bit of creative license.
creative license is a very good way of putting it. So I don't want to put killers in people's real houses. So I do
Yeah.
make up streets and house numbers and names and things, because some people will be a little bit nervous if their address appears in the book and it's the scene of something really awful. But other local landmarks, yeah, and it's nice to get this sense of just I know where everything is, and we can walk around the town, and I know how long it's going to take Nikki to get from here to there and round, without having to think about it too much.
Mm.
So when I write the London series, I do go down there and do quite a bit of research myself, and I walk around. I do get my A to Z out and Google Maps, and I plot things, and but certainly here in Bury, I know, because I know it so well, I probably don't have to research it as much as I would somewhere else, because I'm quite familiar with where everything is.
Must be quite nice for people in the local area as well. I absolutely love it when people set books in Manchester. And, you know, if I can pick out, there was a book I read a few years ago, and the street that was round the corner from, well, it's literally the next street over from the one I grew up on, from being a teenager, was used. And I knew the people that lived in the house that was mentioned in the book, in one of the houses. And I remember being really excited by that because that hadn't happened before. All of these books were kind of set in London or America, or, you know, they're set in places that I hadn't been to.
Yeah.
But there was this book that was set where I lived. And even though, you know, the vigilantism and things that were in the book were, you know, nothing like the area, it was still quite exciting to see the place that I lived. Do you get that kind of feedback from authors that they're excited, readers, sorry, they're excited to see
Definitely.
their
Someone
area?
messaged me. They were reading Missing Boy, the first book, and the fair that the little boy goes missing from is in Abbey Gardens, which is a big part of the town. Everyone knows where Abbey Gardens is. And she was reading it in Abbey Gardens, and she was sat on the bench, and she goes, I'm reading. I know exactly where this boy is, and I know exactly where that stall is. And she was really excited because she could visualise it while she was sat there. So yeah, it's great, and people really do like it.
Yeah, I like that. I like the idea of obviously, and Malcolm saying as well, the setting becomes a real character and he feels it's of great value. I agree. When it definitely does add something when the setting either is real to you or really feels real to you. I think that's quite a skill, because when you're writing, how it comes across to the people who live there is important. And the fact that you're getting nice messages from people who've
Yeah.
enjoyed kind of literally being in the area while they're reading it, it just shows what an excellent job you've done of capturing the vibe of the area.
Yeah, I think it's important because people want to read about, if they're reading about somewhere that they live and that they know, they want it to have an element of truth about it. It can't all be true, so we do reserve a little bit of license to fabricate a few things, but by and large, you want it to ring true to whoever's reading it.
I want to go back to what you were saying earlier about having to tone down some scenes. So, how often is this happening to you, Michelle?
I'm
Just
learning.
how dark are we going that your editor's going, no, that's too far?
No, yeah, it hasn't been said to me too much, but I think it was the second book, The Trophy Killer. So I was, I was removing parts from people's bodies, and then we were depositing them in the town. And I think the comment was because I opened with a graphic scene, and the comment was, you might want to tone it down a little bit and maybe not make it the first scene, because that might put someone off. They might not want to read the rest. So I take it all on board, and it's right. It's I don't tone it down too much, but maybe a tad, a little bit. It's not meant to be a horror book.
No, it's fair enough, and they're definitely not horror. I think some darkness in these tales is good, because if the person, committing the crime didn't have a dark edge to them, that'd be even more worrying, right?
It would. Yeah. So there's always a dark edge, and I think I like to explore that. I think it's the interesting part. And I don't know from a reader's perspective, but when I go into the character of the killer, the perpetrator, I almost want you to like them, because I almost want you to, or not to be sympathetic to them, but I want you to understand where they've come from, what's made them do that. And there is almost an element of, you kind of get to like them in a very, very warped kind of way. Despite what they've done, they might have come from a really traumatic background that doesn't excuse what they've done. It might explain it. It doesn't excuse it. but there's almost that little bit of empathy for them in a very strange way.
I think that's something that you do really well. The idea of having somebody, and you do want to like people, you do want them to have some sort of humanity about them, and it's that word understanding that you said. It's understanding why somebody is making decisions that you completely disagree with, but understanding what led them to that moment. I think that's something that it's such an important thing in books, in real life. It's understanding each other is, yeah, it's something that you handle really well, and it draws you in a different way, and your books always make me think about larger issues. So is that something you kind of are aware of as you're writing it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially the Suffolk-based series, I mention, you know, here and there, it's the whole psychology of what makes people do things. You know, were they born evil or were they made evil? And you know, the nature nurture argument comes out in these books because I think the killers are slightly more warped than perhaps my London series. So yeah, there is that argument, and I want readers to perhaps start thinking, were they born like that? Did society make them that way? You know, or is there a gene? Is there a criminal gene that you're born with it, and this is what's going to happen to you, or are you predisposed to this happening? So it's an argument I kind of sow the seeds a little bit, and I'd like the reader just really to make their own mind up what they think. I think it's a really interesting discussion about, you know, do we create our killers, or is there actually nothing we could have done to prevent it?
On a personal note, I suppose the idea of creation is far more kind of acceptable to us maybe than, you know, this is who you were always predetermined to be. You were always going to be this bad person. And I suppose as readers, as authors, as just as people in general, there's something that doesn't quite sit right about that, isn't there? That the idea of that somebody could literally be born evil and there is nothing that could have been done. It's a great thing to discuss through fiction because the idea of it is terrifying.
It is. It is. Because then what do you do with that child if you know that's what they are going to turn into? What on earth do you do with them? So yeah, it's an interesting discussion, and I leave it as an argument that the reader can just have with themselves, you know, what they believe in.
Yeah, I'm not always a fan of kind of cliffhanger endings and things like that. They can be done really well and they can be brilliant. But having an ambiguous argument like that in a book is brilliant. It's not the same thing as a cliffhanger. It's just getting you to think about multiple points of view from everybody in there. I don't know how you make everybody so clear, so individual. Each character, you know exactly who's speaking and when. You know, you can like kind of look away for a minute and look back. Not that I did look away at all, but you kind of, you know, you could look back and you know it's Nikki speaking. You know who's speaking. One of the things that I love in this book was the families within it, because you've not got kind of an estate full of the, you know, the standard 2.4 children, husband and wife, you know, and everything, everyone's out mowing the lawn on a Saturday, and you know, back to the kind of the 50s. You've got real families, real people within your pages. And as I said, I know you work really hard at that. And the idea of having so many different types of family, I think adds so much depth to the Hardwick Heath killer. So you're having a lot of kind of, you've got a lot to contend with. You've not only got a killer or killers, you have got everything else in between. You are dealing with different lifestyles, different families, all of these different people, and you're just writing this with just an idea of where it begins in your head. It's amazing to me.
I think characters are the crux of any book, I think. To me, you can write a really good book and you can read a really good book. But if you've got really, really, really good characters, that book can be a great book. It turns a good book into a great book if you've got really good characters. So I'm very character focused. I like to know who they are in my head. To the extent that when I'm writing a book, yes, I've got my established characters who I know. If I'm introducing characters just for that book, that story, I don't name them until the very end. They're just man one, man two, woman on the bus, or whoever they are, until almost the very end, because then I've got to know who they are. I know what they look like. They become a person in my head, and then I attach a name to them because I think that name suits them. So I get to know them really, really well. They become real people to me. So that's how I then create them on the page. They kind of grow as I write the book. They grow as I get to know them, and I really do think characters. You've got to have a good plot, obviously a good story, but I think the characters will carry the plot and carry the story. So I want you to know who's saying something on the page. That's a really good thing to hear, because I don't always want to say said Nikki or to tell you who's speaking. I want you to know from their mannerisms or the way they've reacted to something who they are. So yeah, that characters are really the crux of any book, I think.
We've got some comments from hi Tony. Malcolm saying, so Tony Millington said hello, sorry. We all have a dark side, says Malcolm. What is the trigger to snuff out the light? Ooh.
Sorry, say again.
Malcolm saying, what is the trigger to snuff out the light? We all have a dark side. That's quite a deep question, Malcolm, for a Tuesday night. Think you might have frozen on mine. I can't hear you now.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, now I can hear you. Oh, good. Right, hopefully it'll come back again. Donna's asking, does it not get confusing with man one, etc.? Do you lose count, especially as you handwrite? No, I think I've completely lost Michelle now. Been having some, I'm not sure if it's internet issues between us or what, but we've had some moments of freezing. But I have been able to hear Michelle up until now, unless I'm the one that's frozen and I'm talking to myself. So can anybody tell me what's happening, please, so I know which bit to fix? We also had a comment from Bob. Let's see if I can find that. Who's really enjoying the Michelle's books. And let's have a look what the full comment was. No, it's not showing there, which is really frustrating. But I believe, Bob, you've moved from one of the areas to the other and you've lived there 20 years now, which is quite a long time, a really long time. So Michelle's frozen and I'm okay, thank you. It's time for me to sing. Oh no, that is the fastest way to close down a book club, Malcolm. Do you not want me singing? So hopefully Michelle can refresh and come back. I think we've done fairly well to get this far with dodgy internet issues. Hi, Leslie. So if you haven't read The Hardwick Heath Killer, it's blooming brilliant. I love the Nikki Hardcastle books. Oh, thank you, Sarah. So Sarah's copied and pasted so that I can see it. God bless you. I love both series by Michelle, says Bob. I know a lot of the settings, having lived in London and moved to Bury St Edmunds 20 years ago today. Congratulations, Bob. Oh, we may have Michelle back. Bear with me a moment. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
I can see you and I can hear you.
I've got you back. I told you I was a waffler tonight. I've managed to waffle for 2 minutes and fill the silence. So Bob was saying, Sarah copied the comment from Bob so I could find it. He loves both series by you and knows a lot of the settings, having lived in London and moved to Bury St Edmunds 20 years ago today. So congratulations, Bob. Really enjoying your books, which So it must be nice to have a reader who's kind of, I was going to say, followed you around the country. That's not quite the same thing, is it?
That's stalking, I think.
That's stalking, yeah. But it must be nice having readers who have lived in both places and love the book. That's quite an achievement in itself.
It is. It is. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, it's so there's lots of people in Bury that will read the books, and obviously that the series set in London. I do get comments from people who ex-police in London. It did worry me to start with when I've got ex-Metropolitan Police officers contacting me. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, but they know they're really supportive, really enjoy the books, which is really good.
Malcolm's asking if you've got the books to show.
I have got the books to show. Shall I show them now?
Show them again for anyone who missed it at the beginning. I think he was offering me a way of doing something to keep me going while you were away. However, let's show the books again.
Now I'm back. So my Suffolk-based series starts with Missing Boy. Then we have The Trophy Killer. And then the latest one is The Hardwick Heath Killer. Then the book set in London starts with 7 Days to Die. Anyone who's watching the Olympics right now, this one is set in 2012, just in the run-up to the London Olympics. And there's a serial killer on the loose. And Jack McIntosh is my detective in this one. He's just got 7 days to find them before the opening ceremony. So yeah, that's the first one in the London books. We've then got 15 Reasons to Kill, 16 Carved Pieces. We've got 20 Years Buried. And then the last one at the moment is 3 Broken Bodies. And anyone who's very attentive will notice that the London-based series have all got numbers in titles.
In them, yeah.
So yeah, that was my publisher that decided that would be a really good thing to do, and I think it's great.
I think it's like a great brand. Thing to do.
Yeah. So I've just submitted book 6 to them, and I'm really interested to know what number they're going to give the title. Because I let them do the titles now. It's over to them. So I'm wondering what number they're going to come up with for that one.
I think with numbers, I think you're fairly safe if they're not going in order. I think there was one author, and I know I should remember the name, and I do not, had an A to Z kind of thing. So A is for, B is for. That must be a kicker as you get through it, and you think, I've got to write 26 books in the series, and it has to go with, when you've got that kind of, at least your title, because it's a number, you can kind of play around with it a bit more, rather than
there's a bit of flexibility. Yeah.
Flexibility, that's the word I was going for.
Yeah.
So where are you up to now? So obviously Nikki 3 is out now.
Nikki 3 is out now.
So where are you up to? What are you writing at the moment?
So I have just submitted book 6 in the London series to Jockey Books.
So that's Jack.
That's the Jack one. And I'm just currently writing book 7 because they wanted book 6 and 7 to be together. I think they wanted to release them quite close together. So book 6 is with them. I'm about a third of the way writing book 7. Then I'm going to turn my attention back to Nikki again after that. So yeah, I think book 6 is going to be out in about November time.
So are you currently writing 2 books each year?
Approximately, yes. I do manage to get 2 books a year out. I am reducing my hours at work. So at the minute I work full time still. So I'm reducing my hours from October. So I'm hoping that means I can write a bit more and I might be able to get a little bit more done.
I mean, that's still a lot of books.
Fingers crossed.
It's a lot of books. Must take a lot of organisation. Give the less organised among us some tips.
Oh, I'm not sure I'm the best because I've been told the way I write books is quite chaotic. I'm not sure I'm the one who should tell you how to be organised. So
I have to ask, chaotic how?
Well, I don't know I don't know any other way of writing books. So this is just the way I write books because this is the only way I can do it. Some people have just looked at me with a panicked look on their face when I've described how I write them. So I start with an opening scene. I know how it's going to start. I don't know anything else. I don't know how it's going to end. I've got a general gist of a story. And then I just start writing scenes. So I start scenes. I don't write chronologically. I don't write chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. I'll write a scene towards the end. I'll write a scene towards the beginning. Then I'll write one in the middle, go back to the end. And I've got all these scenes that I write individually. Then I kind of move them around, put them in some kind of order. Then I go into it again and I start writing more scenes, some to the end, some in the middle, some at the beginning. And we just go through that process until I've got what I think might be a book. Then I have a little panic that none of it makes any sense, and we move things around a little bit more. I probably make more work for myself than I need to. And it does sound quite a chaotic way of doing things, but
it works for
it's
you.
the only way I know how to do it.
That's the thing. If it
Yeah.
works for you, I know. I'll just say as well. Sarah said it's Sue Grafton. Thank you, Sarah, who wrote the A is for, B is for books. I think when you're, I've completely lost my train of thought now. You being chaotic writing, I think if you tried to force yourself to do it a different way, it would be even more difficult. I think we've had authors who've said, they've tried plotting, they've tried pantsing, they've tried different things in between. Your chaotic approach is actually quite popular, with a lot of people.
I think it is. I think it is. And I think certainly the third book that in the Nikki series, the Hardwick Heath Killer that came out, so many people have said to me, "Oh, I didn't know that ending was coming," and that's because neither did I until I decided to change it just before I sent it to the publisher. I thought, "Oh, I'm going to change that," so I didn't know it was coming either, because I don't kind of plan it that way. So I think it helps with the twists and the way things are fitted together. That I'm not writing it chronologically. I'm writing bits and pieces and moving them around. So it creates a more twisty sort of story, I think. Maybe.
I agree. Liz Fielding is enjoying listening tonight. So hi, Liz.
Liz.
So there's so many authors that kind of watch. We get obviously authors and readers watching, but you all have such a different process. Have you always been like that from the start? Has it always been kind of chaotic for you, just kind of going with the scene that's exciting you in the moment?
Pretty much, yeah. Like I say, I don't know how else to write. I write very visually, so it's almost like it's a film in front of me, and I'm just writing what I can see. I don't know. I've never been taught how to write. I've never done any creative writing courses or anything. It's just how I think a book should be written, or how I can write a book. I'm sure everybody's different.
Yeah, I bet they probably are. There's probably some similarities between, people in each camp, as it were. But yeah, I think just kind of going with what works for you. At least if you're getting some words down, you're getting somewhere.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, Malcolm was saying, "Oh, planner, pantser, and juggler." Sarah is asking, "Where do you get your ideas from?" That's such a tricky one, isn't it?
From a very dark place, I think, is my answer. I don't know where they come from. They just come into my head. I just think 95% of the day I'm thinking how to kill people and get away with it. It's just something that fills my head all the time when I'm not working, and sometimes when I am working. I can just see something. I was on the train at the weekend with a friend of mine. We're coming back from London, and somebody, I don't know how we got onto the subject of someone getting on the train with a big cello case. Someone wasn't getting on the train with a cello case, but what if they were? my first thought was, oh, is there a body in there? Because that's just the way my mind thinks. I'm continually thinking the dark side of something. And I don't know if that's some kind of psychological disorder or not, but it's my brain is just full of stories most of the time.
I think the rule is, if you get on a train, you're looking out the window, the rule should be, that's a good place to put a body, that's a terrible place to put a body. What if somebody put a body there? How can you have a train journey without that being your train of thought?
Absolutely. Yeah. It comes everywhere. Every place I go, I'm always thinking about, oh, can you hide a body here? What, where's the best place? It's, yeah.
See, when I'm talking to you, that doesn't sound disturbing. But if we have that conversation in different company, we'd probably be getting a bit of a side eye at the very least.
Yes, indeed, you would be.
But yeah, I think it's the law that you get on a train and you're looking for where to put things, where to hide things, where people. I wonder if there is actually somebody buried there because it looks like a really good spot. How can that not be the normal thought pattern when you're on a train?
It's entirely normal, I think. Entirely normal.
Donna's saying a bit worrying when you work in the NHS. Just be nice to us, Donna, you'll be fine.
Oh, yes.
We have a long-running joke in my garden, in my family, about the lovely roses in the garden that look like they could do with a bit of feeding at the minute. So yeah, be nice, Martha. So, what did you celebrate the launch of the Hardwick Heath Killer? Do you ever celebrate your launches?
I probably don't celebrate as much as I should.
I feel like we've talked about this before, and I've said you should really go all out and enjoy it.
Because it's normally a weekday, and I'm normally at work. It just kind of happens. I should make more of a thing of it. But yeah, I kind of don't. But I wish I did. I might have had a glass of wine, possibly. That's more than likely, to be honest. But yeah, I need to be more organised, which is not me, but I need to be more organised.
We've got two slightly disturbing comments here. Tony Millington said, suitcases are good. I actually drove past a suitcase at the side of the road, Tony, the other day, and it's been driving me mad ever since. It was on bin day, so maybe they were just getting rid of it. But, you know, it's a suitcase at the side of the road. Maybe I should have gone and looked at it. I'm glad I didn't.
Suitcases are very good.
Donna's saying her colleagues aren't as interested in forensics as she is. So she's, oops. I dread to think what she's, what on earth are you doing to your colleagues? Bob has said he absolutely loved meeting you and being introduced to your books at the book signing for the release of Missing Boy, then titled Guilt in Bury St Edmunds. How lovely.
Indeed.
That's a real fan coming along to watch you online as well as going to meet you. That's a really lovely thing, Bob.
Yes, lovely. Thank you, Bob.
Are there some familiar faces when you go to places that you know you've met at different places for your books?
Yeah, definitely. They're definitely. I'm not very good with faces or names, but I'm learning. And yeah, it is really nice when people say, "I met you at this book signing," and they come and meet you again, or they'll drop you a message when they're buying the next book. Yeah, it's really, really lovely that people remember you because there's so many books out there. There are so many authors that for someone to remember you is really, really, really lovely.
You are very memorable, though. We've met a handful of times, but you're one of my favourite people. You know, it's one of those things. You are really lovely, and I know I might not appear very timid, but I can be, especially at events. And you were very welcoming, gave me somewhere to sit, kind of calmed me a bit, which is always very welcome. I do need calming a lot.
Was there alcohol involved?
Probably. Sarah Elizabeth says your browser history must be interesting. I dread
My what? Sorry.
Your browser history must be interesting. I dread to think.
Yes, I dread to think sometimes if anyone was watching what I'm Googling and what I'm looking into, it's shocking sometimes. And I think, sometimes I do get the box that pops up, like, are you really sure you want to look at this? Oh, yes, actually.
Oh, okay, that's interesting because I googled some stuff and I have not had that box. I
Oh,
did
yes,
not
you have to
know that
Google
box was a
certain
thing
things.
until now.
Oh, the warning sign, yes. I was Googling something, I'm not going to say what it was,
No,
but all I got was pop-ups for the Samaritans and other support services for me to contact because of what I was trying to Google, which is good in a way. You know, it's
of
good that
course
that was
it
there.
is. Yeah, of
But I
course.
actually did want to find out the information. But yes, my browse history is quite interesting.
Bob said you're very welcome. You know about him. Yeah, loving the books and um, Donna's saying her cleaning lady was horrified when she talked about the body farm in America. Malcolm's saying cleaning lady question mark. But I'm guessing this is at work, Donna. So are you aware of the body farm in America, Michelle?
Yes, I think it's fascinating.
You do.
Absolutely fascinating. Yes, I think it's, yeah, I don't see what's wrong with it at all, Donna.
I think it's probably quite a necessary thing for very many reasons.
Mm.
Um, Donna, drop the link in for me so that people can have a look, please. Sarah's Sarah's emphatically wanting to go and visit the body farm.
Absolutely, can we?
And Donna said the cleaning lady was at work. She backed out of the room. Well, you would, wouldn't you? If somebody's talking about the body farm and decomposition and, you know, the
Uh-huh.
rate of
I think it's
the
fascinating.
kind of
It's, yeah.
maggot and fly thing. I mean, like, generally, I'd be really grossed out by that, but it really is fascinating. We
Mm-hmm.
all need to kind of plan a little trip.
Yes, can we?
Donna, get on it. Donna can organise it for us all. Okay, without kind of going too into what you were googling and why, what
Mm-hmm.
have you found that has either been really useful or really surprising when you've been googling things?
Oh, that's a good question. I Google a lot, obviously. You have to, but there are so many rabbit holes that you can disappear down that I'll do a certain level of my own research, but sometimes it just leads on and on and on and on to too many other things.
You could sit there for a month looking at one thing, couldn't
You
you?
could, and then sometimes you actually forget what it was you were asking in the first place. And sometimes the internet isn't correct. You know, some of it's out of date. So you've got to be a little bit careful.
Mm.
So I do have advisors. I'm very lucky in both of my series that I have two police officers that help me out. Um, I've got a police sergeant who gives me the sort of 999 emergency response. What would happen if?
Mm.
And then I've got a detective inspector who gives me the investigation side of things when it's moved on, and they're brilliant. So I ask them all sorts of dark questions.
Did they check you out a bit
And
before
I
they gave you
remember
any answers?
they did that first of all, before they agreed to advise me, they said, we did check you out. So I wouldn't expect anything less. Um, I know what my last book, I think it was Hardwick Killer, the detective inspector that I was asking some questions to. His sort of last comment was, these are the hardest questions you've asked me so far. You know, I'm really struggling here because I'm just asking him things like, what would happen if? And but they're brilliant. They really give me the what I hope would be authentic and realistic responses to things. So, and I think that's preferable to any internet search. So I tend to do a bit of internet searching, but then I will default to asking them what would happen if. And then they've been brilliant. They've been really, really good. So I'm lucky. I'm very, very lucky in that respect.
I think it's increasingly important to have experts because the amount of things that I've learned, you know, when you kind of grow up watching different things on TV, so you assume that's correct. And we might not assume that, in CSI, for example, you might not get a DNA result in 10 minutes and all of that. We know it's for the TV.
Yeah.
But the amount of things that I used to think were how it was really done, because that's what I'd seen.
That's what you've seen and been told.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I know
crime fiction books, you can't get away with that, can you? You've got to have so much accuracy. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, in the trophy killer. So my killer needs to overcome the victims really, really quickly in the street. Basically, he just takes them from the street. And I've seen the films where they just stick they'll stick a syringe and a needle in the neck, and then it's instant, isn't it? And I inquired at work. I'm really lucky at work as well, at the hospital. People will help me out. And I got a consultant anaesthetist to help me, because I needed to sedate my victims for quite a long period of time. So I was asking him, how do I sedate them? What do I use? That kind of thing. And he told me, that doesn't work. He goes, you see it in all the films. He goes, but it wouldn't be instant. You'd have to be so lucky to hit the correct spot. He goes, that's not the way to do it. So he told me the correct way to do it, which I would never have thought of, because I've seen it in the movies and you think the movies are correct. But he said, no, do it this way instead. That's more realistic.
On one of our expert panels, Brian Price talks about chloroform and how, how many hundreds of times have we seen somebody with a soaked rag over somebody's mouth and they just collapse under it? Never would have occurred to me 10 years ago that wasn't, the way it actually would work. So I think it's terrifying that the research is so wrong, but also terrifying that you all have to look for the actual right answers and they're now in the books.
I know, yes.
But you're balancing that really carefully, aren't you? Because you don't actually want people to get away with murder. You want your characters to sometimes, maybe not all the time. But the idea of kind of giving, helping somebody get away with murder, that's not really the end goal, is it?
Not really, no. You like a satisfactory ending, yes.
Do like a satisfactory ending. We are 1 minute away from 8 o'clock. That's gone really quickly. So show off all those gorgeous covers again, because they really are. They're such good covers, because they literally they scream the genre, don't they? They scream, these are crime thriller.
I think they do. I take no responsibility for the covers whatsoever. They're great.
They are great.
So my buried books are The Missing Boy, and we've got The Trophy Killer, and the Hardwick Heath Killer, which is the most recent one. And then going to my London.
Go and download it, go and buy it, go and order it.
Yeah, it's still 99p.
Oh, bargain.
If you want it. The London-based series, we've got 7 Days to Die, 15 Reasons to Kill, 16 Carved Pieces, 20 Years Buried, and 3 Broken Bodies. And if you like Kindle box sets, the first 4 in this London series are 99p for a box set. So you can't say fairer than that.
If you would like to drop that in a post into the group with my name as a approval, please do. Yeah. Yep. Let everyone grab a bargain, and anyone who isn't caught up yet needs to be.
Yes, I will do that.
Thank you so much. So thank you to everyone who's watched and dropped comments and asked questions. And most importantly, thank you, Michelle, for a lovely evening chatting books with you.
Thanks for having me.
And I hope you come back next time.
I will certainly come back next time. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Is Jack or Nikki next?
Jack. Jack will be out in November.
Brilliant. We'll see you then.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.